the church bells for adding the musically appropriate chimes during our silence.
Dance to Monsanto! Dance Christina!
Okay, we're going to start into our speakers for the March Against Monsanto, starting with Mary Sue Geimer. Mary Sue? There she is. All right. Mary Sue is the coordinator of Greater Dayton Move to Amend, a local affiliate of the National Move to Amend Coalition. Mary Sue has been active in peace, social justice, and environmental issues for years. She also serves on the board of directors of Greater Dayton Christian Connections. Her focus today is going to be on connecting the dots between the corporate actions of Monsanto and the judicial rulings of corporate personhood. So let's welcome Mary Sue.
So I'm here today because I love food. Anybody else love food? I love to grow it. I love to harvest it. I love to prepare it. I love to preserve it. I love to share it. I love to eat it. And I love the way food nourishes my body and my spirit. But food is under attack, and Monsanto is leading the charge. So here's what we know. Monsanto will do anything to avoid regulation. They will do anything to avoid responsibility for the effects of their products on health and the environment. I did some research for this talk, and I found way too many things to talk about, but I picked one, and I picked this one because this one hits really close to home. When Monsanto in the 1940s, they were working with the federal government to build nuclear bombs, the Manhattan Project. Well, they were in charge of the Dayton Project, that is Dayton, Ohio. And in Oakwood, just around 3 miles from here, they were extracting and refining polonium for nuclear weapons. That house became contaminated, so they moved on down the road to Miamisburg, where they built Mound Laboratories. Mound Laboratories later was identified in 1989 as a Superfund site. So Monsanto has a long history with us here, and it's not a good one. Monsanto products are notably toxic. DDT, PCBs, Agent Orange, RBGH, bovine growth hormone, are all Monsanto products, and they are all toxic. They are all poison. In 1976, Monsanto introduced Roundup, a glyphosate-based weed killer. Later, genetic engineering, which I think you'll hear more about later, led to Roundup-ready seeds. And now Monsanto dominates the market in genetically modified organisms. They sell their seed not only in this country, but around the world. And they use threats and intimidation to maintain their market share. And at some point, they intend to rule the world with their seeds. The unfulfilled promises of Monsanto's BT cotton in India drove tens of thousands of farmers to bankruptcy and suicide. So how do they get away with this? Well, 127 years ago, the U.S. Supreme Court gave corporations a gift, the gift of corporate personhood. We know that corporations are not persons, but the courts continue to give them one court decision after another affirming this right of corporate personhood. If they were really persons, Monsanto would have been arrested long ago for bribery, grand theft, fraud, destruction of property, and murder. Monsanto cites the U.S. Constitution to maintain its market share, to do what it wants, to avoid regulation, to protect itself against any threats at all, to avoid labeling. They avoid labeling by claiming free speech under the First Amendment. They use the Fifth Amendment Due Process Clause. They use the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause. Recently, Monsanto got a rider into a budget bill called the Monsanto Protection Act. This gives them immunity from federal court judgments against new, not even on the market yet, GMO crops. so that when they want to introduce the next alfalfa or sugar beets or canola or corn or cotton, they won't get stopped. And this has been passed, and this was signed into law. Now there's an amendment in the Farm Bill that will take away states' rights to decide whether labeling should be allowed or not. Unfortunately, both of our Ohio senators passed up on a chance to get rid of this on Thursday. So it's not a done deal yet, but we need to make sure that they do not allow that to go through. So what do we do? At a personal level, buy organic, buy local, support your local farmers. Grow your own food, avoid processed foods. Absolutely. And question everything. Especially let the food manufacturers, the grocers, the restaurants know that you only want non-GMO food. That's all that you will buy. Support community initiatives and sustainability like Garden Station, which is just a wonderful place. And then I'm going to ask one more thing, because at a national level, keep in mind that when we get rid of Monsanto, there will be another corporation that steps up to take its place. So we need to abolish corporate personhood. We need a broad-based coalition, and there is one. The Move to Amend Coalition is a democracy movement that is putting forth the 28th Amendment to the Constitution to declare that corporations are not persons and that money does not equal speech. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but get educated, get involved. Thank you.
Danielle, where are you, Danielle? Oh, okay. Danielle is a stay-at-home mom to a nearly 2-year-old boy whom she has raised organically and GMO-free from birth. Her mother has a degree in biotechnology, and together they use their knowledge and passion for the environment to grow their own food organically. She has been opposed to Monsanto for many years and is extremely excited about this movement. Her focus today is going to be on the dangers and side effects of GMO and pesticides on small children from both the mental and physical standpoint. Let's give it up for Danielle.
Millions of children every day all around the world are slowly being poisoned by the people that they love the most. And many of them don't even know that they're doing it. Monsanto's GMOs are not only dangerous themselves, but they're covered in pesticides that contain many dangerous chemicals. As she said, I'm the mother to a little boy, Emerson. He'll turn 2 next month. I've done vast amounts of research on the topic and came to the conclusion before he was born that I wasn't going to subject him to these dangers. While there have been many studies alluding to the dangers of GMO and pesticides, not nearly enough of these are being conducted in the U.S. The only thing I can assume is that they know what these studies will show, and Monsanto will not be pleased with the results. One study I found particularly interesting was one done on children in a small community in Mexico. The community started out as one group, and as modern agricultural techniques became more popular, half of the community moved away to the Yaqui Valley, where they were using pesticides, and it didn't take much research to find out that, of course, Monsanto was involved in that. And so some researchers in the early 80s went down to test on these kids that were living in the valley, and what they found was high levels of pesticides in the mother's breast milk and the cord blood of the babies. The study was quickly put to an end, and the researchers were forced to abandon their trials. In the 90s, Elizabeth Goyette, a doctor from the University of Florida, after gaining approval from the proper channels, decided to search for signs of cancer in the children from the Yaqui Valley. After speaking to the mothers, it turned out that cancer was the least of their worries about their children. The mothers were worried about the effects on their children's mental state as well as physical, and they tended to be in worse overall health than the children who remained away from modern farms. After a series of tests, they determined the children in the Ucoy Valley had significant developmental delays. The children from both communities were asked to draw a human figure. Not one of the 4 or 5-year-olds that lived in the valley were able to draw anything recognizable as a human. They also had poor fine motor skills and short-term memory loss. Aside from the developmental delays, the children were overall in poor health. The study in the 80s had showed levels of pesticides in their porous organs that had led to death in some cases. Now keep in mind, these children had the same food and water source as the children that didn't live near these pesticides. These kids weren't even eating it, they're just living by it. Now imagine ingesting that every day like we do. Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. I just want to hear you.
Okay.
Put it all into your mouth.
It's no wonder that the disease and mental disorders are growing at an exponential rate. Now let's flip the coin and imagine a Monsanto-free world. Imagine walking into the store and not having to inspect every item you're purchasing. How wonderful would it be to not worry if you're secretly poisoning your children every night? Imagine not feeling like you should be holding your breath every time you drive by a farm on your way through the country, or the farm down the street from you is poisoning the air you breathe every day in your own home with the pesticides it's riddled with. Wouldn't this just feel like a weight off your shoulders? How do we make this happen? Your dollar is your vote. It's been said before, and I'll say it again. Use your dollar to choose not to vote for GMO food. Use your dollar to not vote for poisoning our families. Use it to support the farmer down the street that's working hard to be an honest organic farmer. We can make a difference. I truly believe that this is the beginning of the end for Monsanto. My son and all the children of the world are being so negatively affected, both mentally and physically, by this monster of a company is enraging. If you have friends that aren't here today, you have children, ask them if they know what they're feeding their kids. No one would do this willingly and knowingly. We have to let people know what's going on. Let them know how they can make a difference. I've seen the difference in my son. He is happy and healthy, and he's a genius, and I swear that the way that I've raised him organically is exactly why. Thank you all so much for listening, and yay, go us.
Thank you, Danielle. That was great. Okay, last but certainly not least, we have George Mertz. George is the owner of Patchwork Gardens, a sustainable farm located on Route 35, just west of Dayton. He has been growing produce in a chemical-free environment for the past 5 years. He is passionate about bringing fresh, local, in-season produce to the people of Dayton. Healthy soil equals healthy veggies, which equals healthy people and a healthy planet. Patchwork Gardens has been operating a community-supported agriculture program for the past 4 years, where they deliver chemical-free produce to Dayton residents. George will be sharing with us his experiences growing food in harmony with nature and sharing the benefits of being part of a community-supported agricultural program.
Hello everyone, thanks for having me today. My name is George Mertz, and I'm the owner of Patchwork Gardens. Patchwork Gardens is a small diverse farm located about 7 miles west of downtown Dayton on Route 35. Our mission at Patchwork Gardens is to bring as much healthy, holistic food as we can to the Dayton community. So anyone that we can feed, we want to be feeding more people organic produce, essentially grown in a sustainable manner. Are we organic? We're not certified organic. Everything that we grow meets or exceeds the organic guidelines, but we don't fill out the paperwork and we don't want to pay the money to have the certifying agency come out and certify our farm. What we are, however, is transparent, which means that anytime you come out, if you stop by our farm, we'll be happy to show you around. You're not going to find a drop of pesticides or herbicides or synthetic fertilizers on our farm. We don't want to eat that stuff, and we don't want to feed it to our friends and family and the community. So I use this term, we, and a lot of people ask me, like, who is we? What are you, some hippie commune or something? And not exactly, but pretty close, I guess. I'm lucky enough to work with 3 other folks full-time. Patrick Gardens, the we that's not here, is Josh Howard, Eric Vasilowskis, and Mark Ewalt. So there's 4 of us working there full-time, year-round. In the summer, my mom comes up from Cincinnati, and she helps around the farm a ton as well. And then we have a couple interns who come out and get to learn how to essentially farm organically. If you came out to the farm 5 years ago, which is when I bought the place, it was just vacant land. It was weeds, and it was like toasted soil. I mean, you couldn't grow anything there. All you could grow there, like moderately well, was mustard greens. So in the past 5 years, we've built a barn, we've built 9 greenhouses, we've built sheds for chickens and goats and sheep, and we work really hard. We work tirelessly, but sometimes they ask the question, can you really even call it work when it seems like play? I mean, I know to me going out and planting vegetables or fruits or harvesting stuff, that's exactly what I want to be doing. So it's hardly work in the traditional sense of the term. Because of all that work or play, whatever you call it, I don't really have a whole lot of time to be involved in politics in like the traditional sense. So I don't really know anything about like city or county or state or like even national like politics. I have a really hard time being involved in that. I also don't get a whole lot of energy from it. But what I do get energy from is my own personal actions. So there's this quote from Gandhi that I always think about. That's be the change that you wish to see in the world. And I don't think there's anything more powerful than that. So, there's another phrase that I think of, and that's just that personal actions have political consequences. Everything that you do personally, every small action that you take, has a political consequence. So, like was already said, vote with your dollar to some extent. I mean, that does something. That certainly does something. I think that everyone needs to believe in something and fight for that which they believe in. For me, that means I believe in the dignity of human life. I believe in the dignity of the environment. I believe in the dignity of plants and animals and ecosystems. And so I think we should fight for that.
Yes.
In like my personal life, if you interact with people, you'll come across people who are racist or sexist or ageist. And any of these forms of discrimination, I think, degrade the human spirit. And they degrade you too, really. So from my perspective, I think we should hold everyone to the fire. You know, if your neighbor is being racist or sexist or ageist, call them out on it and, fight for that right now. Hold them to the fire. And, yeah, if you see somebody walking down the street, or if you're walking down the street or riding your bike, like you should be, if somebody throws like a McDonald's wrapper or something out their window, you stop them, grab that wrapper and say, hey, this is my world, this is your world, this is all of our world, and that's not acceptable. That's not the kind of world that we want to live in. Likewise, you have a corporate power of Monsanto, and you want to stand up for that, stand up against that with your purchasing power. Buy local, know your farmer, go to the farmer's market, and that's where it starts. Start your own business too. Couldn't say that more. I mean, don't go to Walmart. Don't go to any of these big box stores. Locally. It's like all these places come in and they're running the little guy out of town, and that's not what we want. I don't know. That's not the world that I want to live in. Okay, I wanted to tell you, my farm's name's Patchwork Gardens. I think it's a pretty cool name. I really like this name, and this is where it came from. Okay, patchwork. It came from like a patchwork quilt, where you take these scraps of fabric that otherwise people don't think are that useful. Leftovers from other projects, things that people would throw away, might end up in the landfill. And you take these and you sew them together into something useful and beautiful, and I think that that's really awesome. Another aspect of the idea of patchwork is to patch is to mend, so to mend the soil that we're receiving in a state of ill health. So like I said earlier, all we could grow is mustard greens. And it's now we grow healthy, productive tomatoes, peppers, squash, eggplant, everything. And you can just see it. I mean, it's a pleasure to go through and look at healthy food grow. It makes me smile to see that change. The third reason that I like the image of patchwork quilt is visually from the sky. When I was in college, I went abroad and studied in Brazil and Mexico. And when I went there, when you're flying in over these diverse landscapes of all of these small plots divided up into different uses, looks like a patchwork quilt, visually from above. And I think that diversity, all of the different types of land uses, is a beautiful thing. So I think diversity is beautiful. How much time? How much more time? Not much more time. Okay. As much as you want. Okay. All right. All right. 2 millennia. What we do, one of the things that we do is the CSA program. Does everybody know what a CSA program is? I don't know, maybe some people don't, some people don't. Okay, so CSA program stands for Community Supported Agriculture. And the way that it's community supported is that people buy into the farm to get a box of produce for the whole growing season. And they pay up front, which gives the farmer insurance that they're going to have a customer to go with the produce to. So that's really, it's really an advantage. It's an advantage to both sides, but especially to the farmer, because it's hard you plant a bunch of crops, and then if you don't have a market that you know you can go with, so you could have a bunch of stuff just rot in your field. You prepay, it's a weekly box of produce that you get, changes through the season. It starts with greens, onions, beets, lots of lettuce, radishes, moves into squash, tomatoes, peppers, beans, everything. At least, I mean, the way that we do it, we grow all of your standard garden vegetables. No GMO corn, no GMO beans. But really, I mean, as far as vegetables go, I mean, if you go to a farmer's market and buy vegetables, they're not GMO. So, I mean, just stay away from corn and beans. I mean, is mostly what it is. You got some GMO hay crops, too. All right, the other thing that's really great about a CSA program is the taste, you know. I'm sure that everyone here goes and shops at the farmer's market, so you've had, or grows your own, so you've had local produce in season, and the taste is just tremendous. I mean, the difference between the tomato you buy in the store and the tomato that you buy at the farmer's market, there's no comparison. So the taste is great. With us, we give a newsletter and recipes. If we grow something that we know people aren't so familiar with, but that grows well or is healthy for you, we're going to tell you how to prepare it, how we prepare it, and good ways to eat that. You know the farmer and know where it's coming from. I got one more piece that I like to read here, just at the end. This is something I wrote a couple weeks, or a few days ago. This is why I farm. This is and I want to read this. Farm work can be simple and meditative. It can be intellectually challenging. You have to understand how machines work, and you have to understand your body. Because, after all, it is your body that you use to efficiently plant, to weed, and to harvest produce. You get to see something from start to finish when you plant a seed. You care for it as it grows. You water it. You weed it. You harvest it, and you sell it to grateful customers. You're not a cog in a gear or an interchangeable part. You're not alienated from your labor because it is not just labor you're performing for someone else. You do it for yourself. Farm work is a social gathering. You get to know your friends better as you talk while weeding, harvesting, or shoveling manure to fertilize the crops. In another setting, you might sit in a cubicle, not necessarily with friends, but simply alongside coworkers. Our kind of farm work is healthy for the worker. It makes you stronger and more flexible, more sensitive to the seasons. You can actually say at the end of the day that you have done honest work, and your sleep will be sweetened after a long, hard day. Doing farm work well, you are a caretaker and a steward of the land. You are not extracting profit from it at the expense of soil health, people's health, and the planet's health. Instead, you are making and remaking. You're continually building better soil to nourish yourself and your neighbor, your community, and your world. This is why I farm.
Thanks for being here. I just wanted to say a few words. I'm Lisa Helm, and I basically founded Garden Station here. So I just wanted to let you know a little bit about the place. We've been around for 5 years now. This place is created by volunteers and donations. We don't have any paid staff, including me. We don't have any budget. It's all just whatever we can scrounge or what people give us. And our emphasis here is on sustainable living. Our buildings are examples of sustainable building techniques. Our garden plots are all organic. We have a community garden program, and we started a urban farm program, and basically started a bunch of urban farmers here in Dayton, and got an intern this year, and we're working on an urban farm training center and demonstration gardens. Also, this year we'll be putting in food forests. We just finished my permaculture certification, so we'll have demonstration food forests on site here. So look at us online, just Google Garden Station, you can find us. We also started with our Farmers Market Whole Sustainable Living Workshop Series last year. We had 23 workshops on all kinds of things like homemade cheese and home brewing and gardening and canning and fermenting and all that. And we had an Earth Day festival this year, our first one. We had 30 workshops and 30 organizations participating, so keep watching that as well. And the Greener You at 2nd Street Market retired, so we just took that over and have eco-friendly products, and we'll be adding homesteading items as well and continuing our workshop series. So just trying to build a sustainable community in Dayton and educate people how to take care of themselves better. So after we're all done today, too, I'll probably be up front by the info board if anyone has questions, and I'll give a little tour of the garden so you can see kind of things we're working on here. But thank you all for coming out.
Give a plug for, when we're in the plugging mood, for Occupy Dayton. Yeah. Occupy Dayton's in the house! The reason that Monsanto has been allowed to do what they've done is the corruption between our government and corporations. And that's what Occupy Wall Street has stood for from the very beginning. If it wasn't for that level of corruption, that collusion between the guys in charge, they wouldn't be able to exploit us, the planet, the way they do. So Don't be afraid of Occupy Wall Street. It's a good, good cause.
Okay. It's very hot up here, I'm sorry. I'm going to end just on a note to remind everybody that we are gathering here today in solidarity with fellow activists on 6 continents in 36 countries. Now, right? To take the first step in stopping a corporation that perpetuates crimes against humanity. Monsanto was responsible for developing Agent Orange, as we've heard, a chemical warfare for the military, which resulted in 400,000 people being killed or maimed, and 500,000 children born with birth defects as a result of its use. The Red Cross of Vietnam estimates that up to 1 million people are disabled or have health problems due to Agent Orange. They were responsible for dioxins, PCBs, the list goes on. We stand here for 270,000 Indian farmers that have committed suicide since Monsanto entered the Indian seed market. For the family farmers worldwide who face an unthinkable threat due to Monsanto's unethical practices. The same corporation holds our food system in its hands. Our basic life-giving sustainability is being manipulated and exploited by a company who has proven that supporting life is not its aim or goal. We march because Monsanto is running the FDA, USDA, and most of Congress. Former Monsanto employees are now implanted in seemingly every branch of our government. These employees benefit through direct grants, campaign contribution, and future employment positions at Monsanto when their terms are up. We march because we're not science experiments, because our children are worth more than a profit, right? No? Our children are worth more than a profit? Thank you. So we gather today, not just to raise awareness, but to make it known that we will not allow Monsanto to destroy humanity anymore. We demand the repeal of the Monsanto Protection Act. Yes. And that Monsanto also be held accountable for their crimes against humanity. Yes. So with that, I will tell you, either mankind will stop Monsanto or Monsanto will stop mankind. What's it going to be? Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Okay, that's it. It's weird, I'm sorry.
Okay, so obviously, kind of give us a little bit of rundown of what you're doing here today. What specifically was your target?
Yeah, it was a march against Monsanto. It was actually a global movement. It was a call to action by a single mother in Washington State who, here's my supporting staff, to stand up against Monsanto. I think, they're a chemical corporation who've tried to monopolize our food supply through patenting GMO technology, which has not been proven to be safe. Recently, the Congress passed through a bill known as the Monsanto Protection Act, which basically grants them immunity if any of the new seeds coming to market have been proven to be dangerous in any way. They are immune from prosecution, which, obviously that's a lovely thing to be granted. I mean, so that obviously brought the whole Monsanto issue to a head, but, it's been brewing for many years. They started back, with Agent Orange, dioxin, which is still an issue in the environment today. It's a global movement, and the people of Dayton have come out to support it. And we say, hell no GMO.
I can tell just by the crowd here, I've probably visually looked, it's probably close to 300 in attendance today.
Yeah.
It's pretty close to the people that I saw listed on the Facebook page.
Right, yeah, it's impressive. I mean, I'm surprised, I guess I'm a part of Occupy Dayton, and we've had many rallies against, the corruption in the government and the collusion with the corporations. And we've never had this kind of support. This issue is obviously just a smaller one specific issue with that whole corruption issue. So occupiers in general are glad to see the community rising up and standing up and coming forth to protest issues that are extremely relevant. I mean, it affects our way of life, our ability to lead a healthy, productive life. I mean, these crops are poison, basically. So we are all about stopping them.
And this is just another problem there's smaller problems with this one. It's actually bigger. For example, if you want to try to have more of an organic diet for you and your family and stuff like that, now the doctors find about this. They want to turn you into children's services and stuff because they say that you're not doing properly this, that, and the other, just like going homeschool or things of that nature. So if you have any type of independent thought or want to have your own little thing going on, it's like you're not playing part of the program, you're not part of the system, you're the enemy. And they find every excuse they can to intrude into your life and everything else. I mean, if you don't want to have your grocery store milk, but you want to get raw milk from the local farmer, who's to care if you intake that in your body?
Yes, yeah. I mean, follow the money is a nice, relevant phrase for pretty much anything in our society nowadays, it seems. It's all about the money and who pays the politicians to regulate and make the laws. So it's about time. The people don't have the money, unfortunately, but we do have the power and we have the numbers. So.
I remember when I had to leave you, how we held to each other, and you cried, then breaking away I did leave you, to fight for our country and those that have died, and our souls they spoke through a time, and our souls they slept for a while. As I gaze in the mist and I remember, as I walk in the glens I am blind, as I hope and I dream and I wonder, and remember when Ireland was mine, and remember when you were mine. I remember when I returned to you, what I found in the mist where we met. Your eyes, they no longer could stare out at the glen, and the smell of the earth was fresh in the air, and our souls, they slept for a while, and our souls, they slept for a while. As I gaze in the mist